thank you so much for your presentation earlier at the session. It was really interesting, and I just wanted to deepen a little bit on what PTP is doing in terms of reduction of carbon emissions. I think one of your milestones is reduce by 45% your carbon emissions by 2030, right? So could you tell us a little bit more about, what are your decarbonization action points?
Sure. I think the goal, the 45% reduction, is based on the Paris Agreement, right, where the countries, amongst others, also our home country, Malaysia, has signed up to reduce by 45%. So what we have done is we have looked at our baseline. We have done the study 2021 so that we know from where we need to reduce 45%. Okay. So, and then we put it into the three pillars, the three scopes: direct emissions, indirect emissions, and emissions in the value chain. So, and when you look at it on scope 1, on the direct emissions, we do two main things. One is that we want to actually use a lot of digital solutions, look for actually reducing the energy intake. So regardless, we don't look at what kind of energy we use, being electricity or diesel or whatever. We just want to use technology, IT, to make sure, IoT, to make sure that we just work smarter and reduce the energy intake. And the second one is that we will have, in the next couple of years, our entire fleet on the terminal, fleet of equipment, completely electrified, so that we then really have a fully electrical run terminal. So that's what we do on scope 1. Scope 2 is the question, where is the electricity coming from? So to make the grid cleaner, so to say. One thing is the usual one is the rooftop solar. So every rooftop we have on the terminal, we will put solar panels on. We're changing all our lighting to LED lighting, which is in a large terminal as ours makes a difference. We're also looking at waste to energy, so that we look if we can have some bio waste, if we can turn it into energy. So that's to reduce also the footprint. And probably the big one is that we want to partner up in Malaysia with a solar farm. So we want to build our own solar farm. Not us, but with a partner. So where we said we take up the solar farm for the next 20 years. So and this energy will then go into the grid, the solar energy, and all this in combination will bring us then to a 45% reduction by 2030.
Okay, so it's a very holistic approach.
We have to be holistic, right? So there's not one silver bullet. You have to make sure you look at all angles to really decarbonize what you do.
Exactly. And Marco, also in your presentation, you also talked about the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. So besides energy transition and decarbonization, what other SDGs is PTP focusing on?
One, I think there's a couple we're focusing on along the entire environmental, social, and governance side. But when we talk about the environmental one, I would say is predominantly SDG 13, 14, 15. Yeah. It's about climate change. It's about life below water, and then of course also life on land. So why they matter to us, I think the first one is clear on the climate change, all the initiatives we are doing, and we talked about it. But then also life below water as a port. Water is our ecosystem, is where we operate, where we do things, right? So for us it's around, also when we do expansions and so on, how do we make sure we really protect the environment? So there we have a lot of initiatives also with the environmental authorities in Malaysia ongoing, where we, for example, working on seagrass, so conserve seagrass. We have even replanted seagrass. We have relocated it from one area to the other one, just to make sure this ecosystem will stay. Also, when we expanded our free trade zone and we came close to the coastal line, so we have also there relocated certain seagrass and have to make sure that it's also protected. So this is something we take a lot of care of. And look, even though I'm not a Malaysian, but the vast majority of our employees are Malaysian. So, and we can also see a pride that they say when we do kind of these activities, like for example, for SDG 15 around life on land. So that we, for example, look at the whole mangroves around our area where the port is, so that we have a lot of activities that we want to replant mangroves. So, and we are to the point that we have agreed we want to plant in the next couple of years, we want to plant more than 60,000 mangrove trees. So, and we want to do it obviously not in one shot, and we also don't want to do it, how to say, industrial. Yeah. We rather say we want to do it in different steps at different timings, together with different communities. So with the port community, but also with our free zone community, we want to work with NGOs. We want to invite our stakeholders from the government, so that, let's say, everybody is part of it. So this is not just an exercise of put the mangrove trees in the ground and finish it. It's more about understanding what we do, understanding how we do the rehabilitation of this life around the terminal and what it matters. So that at the same time you can see a modern container terminal creating jobs and an ecosystem for the community, but at the same time it does not have to exclude that you also create an environment or protect the environment and even grow the environmental area, like, for example, seagrass and mangrove. So that's the idea, that we want to do this very inclusively with our community, not just to have it as a tick box exercise, rather as an experience.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, because you're really engaging the community and bringing different stakeholders together.
It's awareness also, right, that they really understand. So otherwise people have opinions without being there, right? So that's for us more very important, that also, especially the community living around there, like fishermen and so on, that they really understand there can be a very positive coexistence between the port, which is country important, or which is a country critical infrastructure, but also the ecosystem around it. It can be preserved and it can be also grown. And that's, I think, the very interesting angle to it. So why we said, it's not a tick box exercise, it's rather an experience for ourselves, but also for the community around us.
Marco, I was wondering, we've talked a little bit about ESG and about decarbonization. So I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit more detail about your ESG agenda and plans, and maybe with a special focus on decarbonization.
Sure. I mean, we have a couple of initiatives, obviously, and some of them I mentioned already in the presentation. But I think the one which we find very, very interesting, it's an initiative which started, I think, close to 2 years ago. And it's actually very interesting. It's a partnership with the Australian government.
Okay.
So through an institution called Partnership for Infrastructure and Ernst & Young. The idea is that what they said is that they're happy to fund a study in an ASEAN country, and they choose Malaysia and they choose PTP to see how can we make these ports in ASEAN, how can we make them ready for a green fuel environment, right? We heard already a lot about it, that this green fuel transition is ongoing, it starts taking traction. So, and we all also know that Australia is very strong on environmental laws, and rightfully so. Yeah. So therefore, I think it's for them important also to see when ships coming from Southeast Asia into Australia, so that they also, when they come in, they should use green fuels. These green fuels need to be bunkered somewhere in Asia. So, and PTP is one of the places which has a very strong trade connection with Australia. So therefore they said, let's do the study together. And they helped us. They did a study around PTP and also globally to look at which are the fuels in the future, which fuels will be used, which fuels will replace in the next 1, 2, 3 decades the current heavy fuel which is used for the longest time. And the study, for example, suggested around PTP, it will be, for the next 20, 30 years, it will be definitely methanol. Okay. We see also that a lot of vessels are ordered from various shipping lines, especially in the container sector, and we are a pure container terminal, and so we don't have other vessels. That a lot of them ordering vessels which will run in future on methanol. Right. So, and therefore we need this ecosystem around PTP. So they also made a social impact analysis, they made a commercial impact analysis. So, and that helped us to get the government on board. Because what we are saying is, we as PTP, we do not plan to build a bunker hub ourselves. That's not our expertise, and that's not what we're interested in. But it will happen within our habitat, within our ecosystem, so to say, in our area. So, and the study, let's say, because it doesn't come from us, or it doesn't come from a single shipping line, it really came from a, let's say, third-party independent study funded by other government. So the Malaysian government found it very interesting to see it, and it had a lot of credibility to say, we as a government need to understand as well the green fuel. There will be a transition in the maritime market. And Malaysia is a very strong maritime country with a lot of big ports and a lot of maritime history. So with the study, we got the Minister of Transport in Malaysia. We got him very quick on board, and we got the maritime industry very quick on board to understand what we try to do. And then also the minister has confirmed the PTP will, so to say, the first site in Malaysia where they will support building up this green bunker hub. So there's various initiatives they need to do, which will be, of course, now discussed bilateral between the governments, between the companies, they will start building up, looking into different policies around it. So they need to set up a framework that these new fuels can be produced there, or can be stored there, or can be even bunkered to the vessel. So these things starting up now, and it's for us really a little bit of a game changer, because there's only now one ship running with methanol, but it's 150 on order. So when all these ships coming in the next years, we also believe we will be ready with this ecosystem. So it comes, let's say we are slightly ahead of the curve, it comes in time, and we are on top of it to say other countries are a little bit further, but it's a lot of, let's say, government-run ports. So in our case, we are probably one of the first private ports which really looks into this and builds up this kind of ecosystem. And we hope that it will obviously replicate it within Malaysia, but then later on over an entire ASEAN, because I think when it comes to these green fuels and so on, it's not about competition. It's about that we really get the supply chain decarbonized.
Yeah, going through a transition and finally scaling it up.
And then, exactly, so that we can be the side where others can, let's say, steal with pride and can replicate it in their ports, that we really make sure we have really a big push in this decarbonization of the maritime industry, also of the global supply chain.
Now that's really very interesting, and I really see PTP being really ahead of the curve. And yeah,
We try to stay there, absolutely.
that's great. Well, Marco, thank you so much for your time.
All the pleasure.
And thank you for coming here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.